Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed, and I'm happy to take you through the second section of Surah Al-Anbiya, the chapter of the prophets, which I thought there was going to be more story time, but so far it's just talking about things that we need to know and things that we need to learn about the Quran, about life, and there are some interesting things in this section. I'd just like to explain what this channel is. This channel is an education channel. And I love the Quran, and I believe that it is the Word of God. And I'm trying to understand what it says and what do I understand from what it says before I get into any other explanations, perspectives, concepts. I want to start with what do I think and what do I believe and what do I understand, and then work my way from there. A little bit about me is that I do not have, I've not studied the Arabic language beyond school, and I am not a Quranic scholar. In fact, this is my first read-through of the Quran for a lot of the Quran. And I'm sharing my education journey with you. But if you see or hear something that you kind of disagree with or have a different perspective on, feel free to drop a comment. I'm learning from you as much as I hope that you can learn from me as well. But yes, I'm not an authority on the Quran, but I am sharing you my understanding on what I get from it, because I speak both Arabic and English, and the Quran. Maybe a fun fact, because I haven't said this in quite some time. The Quran, there's only one Quran. And that's what makes it different from the Bible. The Bible is closer to Hadith, whereas the Quran is closer to Jesus, because Jesus was the Word of God. The Quran is the Word of God. And the Quran exists in one version and in the same language that it was 1,400 years ago. And that is why I am studying it, because it is the one piece of scripture that has been preserved by God and has not changed and is in perfect grammatical form, for example. And I love it, and I find beauty and I find magic in it, and I'm very excited and very interested. So I hope that you enjoy and joining me along on this journey. Cool. That's all that I wanted to say. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And off we go.
ومن يقل منهم إني إله من دونه فذلك نجزيه جهنم كذلك نجزي الظالمين.
Yeah, and I could tell you what we were reading before. It's kind of a new thought and a separate thought, so we can just jump straight into it. And whoever says from among them that indeed I am a god from besides God, then we will recompense him with hell. And this is how we recompense. This is how we reward the wrongdoers. This is how we reward the wrongdoers. There are two people that come into mind that says, I am a god. One is the Pharaoh that was drowned in the sea. Pharaoh used to tell his people, I am God, and he died for his transgression. The other that people claim was claiming to be God, which, if you read the Bible, he never claimed it. They claim that Jesus was saying that I am God. And in another verse of the Quran, it's directly asked Jesus, like, did you say that you were God? And he said, I only said what you taught me. I would never say anything that's not true. I never say anything that's a lie. And if Jesus was to say that he is God, then even Jesus would be subject to hell. Because that is blasphemy. And I was like, how much do we want to get into the Jesus story? But I just believe that Jesus did not say it. And if you read the Bible, Jesus never said he was God. He used terms like Son of God, Son of Man, at least from Greek to English, from Greek to Aramaic to English. Something's lost in context, because those are titles. They're not literal. Because he also told us all to call God Father in a metaphorical sense. Not like he was our actual father, but like that we all belong to him, and somehow thinking of him as a father versus a master is easier for some people to digest, for example. But let's not get into the technicalities too much. Let's just focus on the verses that are in front of us.
أولم ير الذين كفروا أن السماوات والأرض كانتا رتقا ففتقناهما وجعلنا من الماء كل شيء حي أفلا يؤمنون.
This for me is the most interesting verse of today's section. which is, the most interesting verses at the start. But nonetheless, let me read it and then kind of talk about it. It says, do they not see, which I think this is a metaphorical seeing, like see with your mind, perceive with your mind. Do they not see, those that disbelieve, that the heavens and the earth were joined in entity, so we parted them, that the heavens and the earth were one, and they were parted, which is very, very interesting. And we made from the water everything that is living. And again, the Quran uses the parable of water to be of life. And there's no coincidence that when astronauts are going to other planets, the signs of life are the signs of water. If there's water, there's bacteria, there's things, there's signs of life. Water is the key to life. Water is how we kind of stay alive. So water is constantly the image of it. And it says, will they not believe? Now, I did not know that the heavens and the earth were one mass, and then they were split. Which brings together a bunch of ideas and concepts. First of all, the fact that they were split is like what? And then when you have the concept of the heavens or the skies, sometimes it does refer to heaven. And when God does talk about heaven, he uses the similar word, samawat. And it, like, for instance, when we were talking about the jinn going up to heaven to get news so that they can pass. We still haven't covered that chapter, but we'll get there in the future. It was one of the chapters that I pre-read. That the jinn used to go to heaven to get information and share it back down to earth. Essentially, the concept is they're going into heaven, where Adam and Eve were kicked out of. Now here it's saying that and the earth were one level. And there is a concept of heaven on earth, right? And this is something that we kind of see more from a Christian faith and more from what Jesus was saying in his prophecies, that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, the kingdom of heaven will come down upon us. And maybe that's a little like, in order for maybe earth kind of gets reset and heaven comes down. I don't know. It's like just the concept that they used to be one and then they were separated is kind of wild. It's kind of like one of the interesting concepts that we've covered in this channel was that heaven is held up by pillars that we cannot see. It doesn't mean that we can't see them because they're not there, or we can't see them. There's interesting theories about it, but it feels like the construction of this universe has a few more mysteries, and I find this fascinating, that the heavens were on earth, which is kind of like, wow, what does that mean? Does that mean also that at a later point it will happen again? If they were separated before, and then there's going to be a change, and the earth is going to be replaced, maybe because the Quran says in other parts of the Quran that the earth will be replaced with another earth, and maybe that's the replacement, that you kind of bring back down the heavens, and then heaven can be on earth once evil is defeated. Which, okay, I know I've been digging at the Christians quite a lot, but I have to dig at it one more time. The belief of the Christians is that Jesus died on the cross and defeated evil, but that he's going to come back and he's going to defeat evil once more. And I'm like, if you defeated evil, why did you not defeat evil? But the reason why I bring this up is because the idea is that Jesus is going to come back and he's going to defeat evil, and once he defeats evil, the kingdom of heaven will be at hand, and heaven. So the concept of the heavens and the earth splitting, the idea is that they will rejoin once evil has been defeated, I think is the idea, right? But it's all theories. All we know from this specific verse is that the heavens and the earth were together and then they were separated, which I find fascinating. Maybe the descent of Adam and Eve from heaven was less a descent and more that the heavens rose, therefore they in somehow descended. But I'm getting a little bit too complicated and a little too theoretical. Let's just stick to what's at hand. Heavens and the earth were one, and then they were separated. Will they not believe? I just found it fascinating, very interesting.
وجعلنا في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بهم وجعلنا فيها فجاجا سبلا لعلهم يهتدون.
I just love the Quran. It's so beautiful. Like, to be guided, and I just feel guided when I hear these words, you know, like, sorry. Yeah, and we have placed in the earth mountains, firmly set mountains, that lest it shake, the mountains are there to shake. which is very interesting because at some point, some descriptions of Judgment Day is that everything will be flattened, the mountains will be flattened, and the crevices will be brought up. Kind of, there will be no dents, no extensions. So I wonder, does that mean it will shake? I don't know. But either way, the mountains have been put into the earth so that it does not shake with them. And we made therein broad passes as ways so that they may be guided, which is very interesting. First of all, it's kind of like God is saying, I created mountains, and in between the mountains, I created paths for you to go by through, which is kind of like, it's very clever world building. If you when I think about video games, you kind of want to create systems and things that are pretty and things that are landmarks, but still you have paths in between them. And the idea that God created all these paths for us rather than we created them ourselves is kind of interesting and cool. And then the idea is that these paths were created so that they may be guided, find their way, not that they're able to move, but that they use the landmarks, they use the different structures and processes to figure their way out. Which then brings to mind of like the Sahara Desert and how on earth the Arabs used to find their way is amazing. Honestly, it's amazing. How they were able to find anything in the desert is beyond me. But yeah, it's talking about the creation of the earth and its purposes.
وجعلنا السماء سقفا محفوظا وهم عن آياتها معرضون.
It says, and we made the sky a roof that is protected, which is, again, it means several things. It could mean physically that the sky is, protected. There's an ozone layer, there's the clouds, whatever. There's a kind of consistent, like the ozone layer is the thing that comes to mind. And the idea that it's protected, there was always the concept of, the ozone layer is shrinking and we're causing too much smoke and smog. I haven't heard that the ozone layer is shrinking in quite some time. I don't know whatever happened to that. Maybe it's still around, but I mean, like some people tie it to global warming, right? Let's not get, but either way, there's a concept of like the physical, the sky could be protected. The other concept is, again, I've told you that the sky is sometimes a reference to the heavens. And in other verses, it says that the heavens are protected from eavesdroppers or creatures that used to steal information about the future and bring it down to earth, for example. So I don't know if it's a physical protection or a metaphysical protection. Because it says, like, if any jinn go to heaven, then they will have, like, burning flames coming at them. So I'm not sure. And then it says, but they are from our signs turning away. And here they talk about, the planets in the orbit, the sun, the Milky Way galaxy, and orbits the Virgo supercluster, yada, yada, yada. And essentially that those are signs. But I personally could never look at the stars in the night sky and go, oh, God exists. Yeah, I could never make that conjecture. So I guess I was turning away from it, but even now I fully believe, and I don't look up at the stars and go, oh, God exists. Like, I don't know. For me, belief comes from a different source rather than seeing the stars in the sky.
وهو الذي خلق الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر كل في فلك يسبحون.
Ooh. And he is the one who created the night, the day, the sun and the moon, each in their own orbit, swimming. Floating, traveling, swimming is the term. If you're floating and moving, you're swimming. I don't know why. Floating means not to move. Orbiting means to go in an orbit. Swimming is the actual word. Yasbahun is literally swimming. But God created the night, the day, the moon, the sun. It's interesting that it says night and day first and then the sun and the moon. And is that like night before day, sun before moon? Because everything was darkness and then there was light. and the light comes from the sun and sometimes the moon. You know, it's kind of just an interesting order of wording.
وما جعلنا لبشر من قبلك الخلد أفإن مت فهم الخالدون.
And we did not make for any man from before you immortality. We did not give any man before you immortality. So then if you die, then would they be living forever? Which I didn't quite understand this. I feel like this is referring to something at the time of the Prophet. If you die, would they be immortal? What? And also, we have not made for any man for before you, for any human, not man, bashar. Bashar kind of indicates made of flesh, right? Any human of flesh. Not anything made of flesh as in animals, but like specifically mankind. We've not made for anyone from humans immortality. But it says from before you. I wonder if there's, like, my brain is like, so what does it mean for after? I always like to think of antithesis. What the verse is saying, what is it not saying? It says nothing about after. It just says from before you, we did not make anyone immortal. So if you die, would they be living forever? I struggle to understand the context of which this is addressing. There's probably something that someone can explain to me as to why this is the case. But the next verse is a bit more clear.
كل نفس ذائقة الموت ونبلوكم بالشر والخير فتنة وإلينا ترجعون.
Every soul is tasting death, will taste death. Every soul tastes death, and we will test you with the bad and the good. Oh, as a trial. We test you as a trial. Nablukum. Yeah, we've had bala. I still think I've spoken with Mustafa. It is absolutely test. Nablukum, to test you. It's like a trial. Yeah, a trial, something that is challenging. Is both the bad and the good, you know. And it's kind of like, how does the good become a trial? It's everything in life is a trick, a test. It's not a trick, it's a test. Everything in life is a test. When you get wealth, when you get power, when you get success, if you go, I'm so strong, I'm so capable, I'm so amazing, you've kind of become arrogant and you've not given credit where credit's due, which is credit belongs to God, and therefore you've committed a sin. But if you go through terrible things and you go, it's God's fault, why are you putting these things to me, why are you treating me terribly, then you've also committed the sin of being also kind of arrogant, to like assume that you understand why this is in your way, and not appreciating that this is a moment for you to show being humble, to show being appreciative of God, to show humility, grace, and in fact, yeah, I think both are just equally good. But if you go through hardship and still maintain a kind heart and maintain trust and maintain faith, for me, I think those marks are scored higher. But that's just my own personal bias. That's not nifty, as they say. If ifty isn't to speak and say things that that aren't necessarily true. And to us, there will be a return. And the first thing that I thought of is every soul tastes death. There's one soul, according to the Quran, that has not tasted death yet. Well, I mean, there's many souls that haven't tasted death because we're all alive. But one soul from 2,000 years ago that has not tasted death, and that is specifically Jesus. Jesus has not died according to the Quran. Jesus, instead of being crucified, he was made to seem that he was crucified, and then he ascended into heaven, which the Christians also believe that he ascended into heaven. And the Quran does say that before he dies, all souls will believe in him. So it's just a very interesting statement to be said and to be had. Just throwing that out there.
وإذا رآك الذين كفروا إن يتخذونك إلا هزوا أهذا الذي يذكر آلهتكم وهم بذكر الرحمن هم كافرون.
And when they see you, those that disbelieve, they only take you except in ridicule. When they see you, they only make fun of you. They say, is this the one who mentions your gods? This the one talking about your gods? This silly, simple man? And then it says, and they are, in the mention of the most gracious, Ar-Rahman, one of the names of God, they are disbelieving. Which I struggled a bit to understand what this verse is saying. The disbelievers making fun of the Prophet makes sense. Them saying, is this the one who speaks of your gods? I didn't understand. It could be this the one that's talking? This the one that thinks that there's only one God, even though there's clearly more than one God? And then it ends with and they are at the mention of the most gracious in disbelievers. So something I thought about is that they don't even mention that there is one source God. And I find that very interesting, specifically when we're talking about other religions and other cultures, such as Hinduism, where they have a concept of multiple deities, but they also have a concept of a creator God and that everything came from him. Sometimes it's called Brahman. I'm not sure. I'm not that well versed in Hinduism. Don't hold me to it. I wonder if that's what it's kind of talking about, that believing in multiple gods, but also believing in a creator God. I don't know. And what does that have to do with them judging him? Is he the one who speaks of your gods? While they deny in God, they won't even mention God. They disbelieve in the mention of God. Which maybe the disbelief in the mention of God kind of means that they just, there's one God, and they go, you're talking nonsense, you're kind of being silly. Yeah. But it's kind of describing how the disbelievers, again, we don't see the word prophet, but it is understood that this does apply to the prophet. Because it's saying, and when they see you, and whenever it's direct, it seems to be talking at the prophet. But I've always had a theory that the Quran is a book for messengers, and there might be a messenger after the prophet. Because the prophet is the last of the prophets, but not the last of the messengers. But we'll get there when we get there. When do we get there? Actually, that's a good point. Chapter 33, Al-Ahzab. Yeah, we'll get there. Okay.
خلق الإنسان من عجل سأريكم آياتي فلا تستعجلون.
Okay, so I have a very dumb joke. First I'll explain what it says, then I'll tell you the dumb joke. Human is created of haste. Is made of haste. As in, what compromises a human is haste, which I find very interesting. And I'll talk about it in a philosophical sense now. And it says, I'll show you my signs so that you do not ask me to hasten. فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُونِ. So you don't ask me to hasten them. Which is very interesting. Okay, let me explain it properly, and then I'll explain the joke, because then the joke's going to distract us a little bit. First, I thought when I read this, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَجَلٍ, as in man was created hastily. I don't think man was created hastily, but made of haste. It kind of implies that there's a sort of impatience, a need, a speed that exists within us to be now, me, go. And then it says, I will show you my signs so that you do not فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُونِ. You don't try to hasten me. You don't try to make me move it faster. And I wonder what that means. سَأُرِيكُمْ آيَاتِي. One of them is I could show you my signs. The other is I'm going to show you my verses, because ayat can be both verse and sign, and some of the verses are signs, but the signs are not necessarily verses. So maybe it's saying I will show you my verses so that you will not ask me to hasten. and that in the Quran there is an ability to be patient. And I find that with the Quran quite a lot, especially if you believe and you read the Quran, you just get filled with peace. You might be in a haste. You're like, why isn't this done? Why isn't this different? Why isn't this something else? But you read the Quran and it just brings peace upon you. It really is Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. It's kind of very, very beautiful. But so the joke, that kind of, it's a very dumb joke. Ajalin tastajilun. So here you see ajala. It's the same word. Haste, make me hasten. But the word ajal can mean wheel. So humans are created from wheels. It's beyond dumb. It's beyond stupid. I apologize for saying it, but this is how my brain works. It's so stupid. It's obviously talking about haste. And it mentions the word haste in more clarity. Tastajilun cannot be wheels. It has to be hasten. And it would only make sense that it would be the same concept. But it's just a fun, dumb idea. But humans are hasty. And something will be shown so that people don't haste. And I think it means the verses and the signs and the verses that we're reading today.
ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين.
Yeah, and they say, when is this promised if you are telling the truth? And again, this talks about the hasty nature of humans. We've seen this time and time again in the Quran. The Quran mentions, well, I just put here through so I can hear myself differently. The Quran mentions time and time again that the disbelievers, when they're given, and it says this promise, it's not threat. Threat is not the right word. It's promise, because the Quran is both a promise of a reward for those who do good and a threat for those who do bad. It's both. But usually, it's just a mess. It's just a mess. But usually when it says, if you are telling the truth, if you are truthful, then it's an indication of those who are like not really believing. So we kind of understand it to be more the threat, the promised threat. But it is also an indication of the hastiness of humans. They're like, if, you're saying we're going to suffer, when's the suffering coming? What time is it? And this is like, a valid point. Especially because the Quran was revealed 1,400 years ago, 1,450 plus. And a lot of people will say, oh, it was revealed 1,450 years ago and it still hasn't come. The book is saying that it's not going to come anytime now. And the book always says the time is a lot sooner than you realize. And primarily because you're going to die a lot sooner than you realize, and then all of a sudden the time's upon you. And two is that technically at any moment now the time can come. I obviously don't think it's going to happen just yet. I think there's going to be a little bit more spice and conclusion and variety in life. But this speaks to the hastiness that we were describing in the previous verse.
لو يعلم الذين كفروا حين لا يكفون عن وجوههم النار ولا عن ظهورهم لو يعلم الذين كفروا حين لا يكفون عن وجوههم النار ولا عن ظهورهم ولا هم ينصرون.
I do not understand what causes the repetition. Most of the times when the reciter repeats, he repeats halfway through. And a lot of people have said, oh, he's repeating it halfway through because he needs to catch his breath, which is absolutely not the case. And this was the weirdest repetition because he read all the way over here and then he started from the very beginning of the verse and then finished the whole thing in one breath. Why was there repetition? I will never for the life of me understand why there's repetition. Why don't you just recite it as it is written? The Quran is perfect. I don't understand. I will never understand. I don't know. Maybe I'll understand if somebody explains it to me, but it just frustrates me. The Quran is written in this order and these words, and when the Quran wishes to repeat, it repeats. Why are you repeating without the Quran repeating? I don't understand. I don't. Anyway. That's one of my pet peeves. If only they knew, those that disbelieved, at the time that they will not be able to avert from their faces the fire, nor from their backs, and nor will they be helped. And like the response to, yeah, when's it coming? You bring this suffering, bring this torment, and like the question, like if only they knew how bad it was, they would not be saying when's it coming. If they only like, and usually the Quran talks about when they either taste the earthly destruction and devastation that God has planned for them, or the afterlife, the death and destruction. Once the death and destruction, the people go, uh-oh, is the problem. And you'll see that in the next verse as well. But yeah, if you knew how bad it was, you would not be asking it for it to come sooner.
بل تأتيهم بغتة فتبهتهم فلا يستطيعون ردها ولا هم ينظرون.
But really, nay, it comes to them suddenly, by surprise, and it will bewilder them, and they will not be able to repel it, nor will they be given respite or delayed or saved from it. It's going to come suddenly, it's going to come strong, and it's going to come unrelinquishing. And once it comes, GG. GG means good game. It's what you say at the end of a game, especially if you lost. But no, also if you won. Yeah.
ولقد استهزئ برسل من قبلك فحاق بالذين سخروا منهم ما كانوا به يستهزئون.
And verily, the messengers were mocked from before you, so surrounded those who were mocked from them what they used to mock. And this, again, we've talked about it time and time again. My theory is that messengers deliver a message of act right or punishment coming. Usually in the form of divine punishment, but with the exception of the divine punishment being delivered at the hand of the Muslims in this specific case. That was in chapter 9 at Tawbah. And so... No, because Jesus was a messenger. Well, Jesus also did say that the apocalypse is coming. So maybe Jesus is the final messenger as well. I don't know. But the point being is that, yeah, this kind of... I'm testing out the theory of, do messengers deliver a message of death and destruction is coming if you don't pay attention? And do prophets deliver a message of... a prophecy to be coming? And of course, messengers and prophets, a person can be both a messenger and a prophet. That's in the case of the Prophet Muhammad. That's also in the case of Moses, because Moses had prophecies, and within the Torah was guidance, and Moses also had a message to the Pharaoh, set these people free or suffer. And Pharaoh said, no, I'll suffer, and I'll make it double, thanks. But anyway, all the messengers that came before were mocked, and that which they used to mock ate them up. And again, it's focusing on the messengers, even though this is called Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter of the prophets. It's saying specifically the messengers, and they were surrounded by what they used to mock. And that's why I'm saying messengers usually deliver a warning of divine punishment. And that's why my theory is that. We will hold that theory on as we carry on through the chapter of the Quran and see if it holds true or if at some point we disprove that theory.
قل من يكلؤكم بالليل والنهار من الرحمن بل هم عن ذكر ربهم معرضون.
Say, who's going to protect you by night or by day from... Again, it's the most merciful. It's such an interesting... Why is that the word that is being used the most to define God? And I don't feel like it's the most gracious. I don't feel like it's the most compassionate. I feel like it's the most merciful. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maybe Ar-Rahim is more merciful, and Rahman is the most gracious. But also, when God extends His mercy to us, He's being gracious. So it's not that gracious is wrong. And when God extends His mercy to us, He's being compassionate. It's not that compassionate is wrong. It's just, I feel, merciful is the correct term. But it's interesting that the phrase is saying, who's going to protect you by night or day from the most merciful? It's like, I need to be protected from the most merciful? It's such a juxtaposition of, like, who's going to save you from getting beaten by the kindest person in the room? Which is, and if the kindest person in the room is about to hurt you, then something terrible went wrong. But it says, nay, yet they are from the remembrance of their Lord turning away. And if this feels like a threat, right? Who gonna protect you from God, huh? And they don't respond to threats either. I mean, but it also, like, generally the disbelievers, you can threaten, you can encourage, you can be kind, you can scream, you can speak, you can sing, you can dance, and they will not believe. So it's not like, oh, don't threaten them because they respond better to, kind words. No, they don't. Disbelievers will disbelieve regardless. The Quran has said this multiple times in multiple locations.
أم لهم آلهة تمنعهم من دوننا لا يستطيعون نصر أنفسهم ولا هم منا يصحبون.
Or do they have gods that defend them from min dunina? Oh, aside from us, do they have gods that not defend them, prohibit them? Prohibit is the right word. And here the idea is that, in the previous verses, defend them and protect them. It's kind of like prohibit them from tasting punishment, prohibit them from suffering, prohibit them from God's wrath, prohibit them from getting what they deserve, is the kind of idea. So it does translate to defense in a way, but the actual word tamna'hum, like to block them, to prohibit them, to disable, to stop them from getting a thing or whatever. And then it continues saying they're not able to even help themselves. It's like those other guys, those things that you pray to, they can't even help themselves. What you talking about? They have no power. And they are not from us, and they cannot be protected, nor will they be abided against us. And they are not from us, yushabun. Aided against us is more accurate than protected against us. They will not be aided against us. Nobody will be able to help them against us, and by us, it's the royal we that God uses. Which is like, I mean, it is obvious once you think about it, like all those things that they pray to, Hecate, Lucifer, Loki. What did they do for themselves exactly? And what do they do for you? I need to have this argument with witches, I suppose, because I want to understand what they believe, why they think these are such things. Arguing with them when they're not here isn't as fun. But it's like they can't help themselves. Like I don't understand. I definitely can't help you. Anyway, let's move on.
بل متعنا هؤلاء وآباءهم حتى طال عليهم العمر أفلا يرون أنا نأتي الأرض ننقصها من أطرافها أفهم الغالبون.
This is the second time we see this statement, but let's read it first. But we have given provision to these people and their fathers until life grew long for them, until they had a long life. Do they not see that we come to the earth and we reduce it from its borders? So is it them that will be winning, that will be prevailing, that will be overcoming? Which, do they not see that we gradually reduce their land from its borders? I don't understand. And you might notice that I've had these 3 tabs open. Is the landmass shrinking? Gemini says no, the Earth's landmass is not shrinking. ChatGPT says it's surprisingly complex, not shrinking, but local and regional changes. Sea levels are rising in some places, coastal erosion, subsidence, glacial melt, but then volcanic activities increasing land, sediment deposition, and land reclamation, such as Dubai. I've lived there. The Netherlands. I live there now. It's interesting that they put Dubai as a city and Netherlands as a country. And they put Hong Kong. I didn't know Hong Kong also. Oh, my flatmate's from Hong Kong. We've got all three of them in this household. Very cool. But yeah, I don't understand what it means that do they not see that we're reducing this land from its edges, from its borders? I don't understand. I don't get it. So is it them who will be overcoming? Yeah. Given long life to their fathers and forefathers, reducing the land from its borders, and it is them who is overcoming. Maybe this is referring to a country rather than a land. The Dutch word for country is land, actually. So maybe I'm making that kind of assumption. Now it says the earth, al-ardu, al-arda. It is saying the earth is being reduced. I don't know what that means. Maybe that's, again, the Quran is for all periods of time. So maybe some things might not be true until the future, you know? One could argue that, global warming is shrinking the earth. We don't have enough evidence. Clearly, it's complicated according to Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Gemini. Of course, that's not the end-all be-all of information and noise, but yeah. This is the second time the Quran has mentioned it, that the earth is being reduced from its borders. And this is the second time that I wonder, what does this mean?
قل إنما أنذركم بالوحي ولا يسمع الصم الدعاء إذا ما ينذرون.
Say, and again, we understand this to be the prophet, but again, it can apply to a future messenger. Say, indeed, I only warn you by revelation. The message has been revealed to me, and I'm warning you. And then, again, I find the Quran to be super sassy sometimes. It says, but the deaf do not hear the call when they are warned. And here it's kind of, this is what it's talking about, the disbelievers. Like, the disbelievers are deaf, essentially. You're deaf. That's why I find it sense, deaf, dumb, and blind. Those are your, which actually I kind of find it interesting. It's not deaf, dumb, and blind. Instead of, dumb, I take it from the heart, right? Some people's hearts, dumb indicates brain rather than heart. But yeah, the three senses that the Quran talks about is the eyes, the ears, and the heart, and they perceive the world. And essentially here it's saying that those who disbelieve, they're deaf. That's why they're not going to hear the call. They're like, what warning? What revelation? Who are you talking about? Yeah.
ولئن مستهم نفحة من عذاب ربك ليقولن يا ويلنا إنا كنا ظالمين.
And if it touches them a whiff of torment or punishment or suffering from your Lord, from God, they will say, woe to us, we were the wrongdoers. And this is kind of what I was mentioning a few verses before. The disbelievers will staunchly disbelieve until the suffering and punishment goes, and they go, sorry, we messed up. As soon as the suffering comes, then they go. And you can also see this, instead of, not even divine punishment, not even the afterlife, you could see this when people get sick, when their loved ones get sick. All of a sudden they're like, God, if you're there, please help me. If there's turbulence on a plane, oh my God, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And it's only when suffering comes do they find their faith, which is also kind of the beauty of pain and suffering. In this weird, twisted faith, the more that you suffer, the easier it is to believe. But I guess I'm biased because I'm a believer. Because the non-believer suffers and go, oh, I'm just being doomed and I'm just being screwed over, and they don't attribute anything to it beyond that. I mean, yeah. Either way, when the suffering comes, that's when they realize, oh, we done messed up, but that's when it's too late.
ونضع الموازين القسط ليوم القيامة فلا تظلم نفس شيئا وإن كان مثقال حبة من خردل أتينا بها وكفى بنا حاسبين.
And we will place the scales of justice on the day of resurrection, also known as the day of judgment, but day of resurrection is the more accurate term that is being used here. And no soul will be wronged in anything. No soul will be wronged with anything. And if there had been the weight of the seed of a mustard seed, you can imagine a mustard seed, then surely we will bring with it, and sufficient are we with the reckoners. I find it interesting that they're using the mustard seed as an example of like the smallest weight. In other parts of the Quran, it says مثقال ذرة, which means an atom's worth of a deed. So even smaller than a mustard seed. But a mustard seed is something that people can kind of relate to because they've seen a mustard seed. Whereas you say a dharra, an atom, 1,450 years ago. But even today, we don't see atoms. We know what they exist if we're educated. But we can, almost everyone can relate to a mustard seed. Not everyone can relate to the weight of an atom. So sometimes expressions are made in a way that we can all understand. And sufficient are we as reckoners. And this is the promise of the Quran. And this is why it's a promise, not a threat. Because every good deed will be rewarded and every bad deed will not necessarily be punished, but like will be felt. Or will be seen. Everything will be taken into account. Everything will be in the books. We do know that good deeds outweigh bad deeds, so eventually it can be quite good.
ولقد آتينا موسى وهارون الفرقان وضياء وذكرا للمتقين.
And we gave Moses and Aaron the criterion and the light, and a reminder, وَذِكْرًا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, and a reminder for the righteous, but it's using the word dhikr, and we've talked about this word time and time again. And I don't believe that the dhikr just means the Quran. I believe the dhikr is also the kitab, which is also, but it's also more than that, right? And here, because here, what's it saying? We gave Moses and Aaron the criterion and the light, and we've seen those terms being described whenever it mentions the Torah. The Torah is the criterion and the Torah is the light, as a guidance for the Jews, and a reminder for the righteous, a reminder for those that believe. And it continues by saying, who are those who believe?
الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب وهم من الساعة مشفقون.
The ones who are in awe, are humble, it's khashawa, are in awe, are humbled by their God, by their Lord. Bil ghaibi, in the unseen. Here there's translated to without seeing him, but then they give you the caveat, which I agree with. This can also mean that they're in awe of their Lord as much in private as they are in public, and I think that's a more accurate statement. Not rabbahum bil ghaib as in their God is in the unseen. I think their fear of God is in the unseen. That's how I understood it, but it could be both. You never know. And they are of the hour afraid. Mushfiqun, fearful. Yeah, and the hour means judgment day. The hour means when you die, essentially an hour later is judgment day. So the hour and your hour are quite close to each other. They're an hour apart. Hey. And the last verse for today, right? Yeah.
وهذا ذكر مبارك أنزلناه أفأنتم له منكرون.
And this again, dhikrun, reminder, but here they've translated it to Quran. But they've added the word as a blessed reminder. So again, we're using the word dhikr to mention Quran. I said in a couple of verses ago, dhikr also can mean the Torah, can mean the reminder, the remembrance. It means a lot of words. And this dhikr is blessed that we have revealed. So then are you of it rejectors? And these are dangerous questions. Because if you believe, as I do, that hell and heaven exist and punishment will come, and if you disbelieve, then bad things will happen, then this is this reminds me of the question from Clint Eastwood: "Are you feeling lucky, punk?" And it's like, are you really gonna disbelieve? Is that the truth? Let me just checking. Are you sure that you don't agree? Because it feels like if you say, yeah, I'm sure I don't agree, and then suffering is going to come. So that's why it's a kind of a scary question. It's kind of like I know the answer, and you should know the answer, and if you answer incorrectly, bad things are going to happen. But obviously, belief and disbelief is not set at one specific moment in time. It's set at the end of your life. So try to believe and try to work on your beliefs so that by the time you get to the end, you believe, inshallah. That's it. That's the Quran for today. That's the section. And we talk about Abraham next. I was like, okay, we mentioned Moses and Aaron. I'm like, okay, a little bit of the prophet is coming. I love hearing about the prophets of old. I think it's very interesting. It's very fascinating to me. Story time is always very interesting. And we're going to talk about Abraham in the next verse. But as usual, we always end with Sadaqallahu al-Ali al-Azim. I thank you for watching another episode. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Ma'as salami. Bye.